Let's dive into something a little different today. This isn't just a story, it's presented as a future history, a look back at the moment humanity stared into the abyss and decided to gamble everything on a new start, way out among the stars. So, where does it all begin? It starts with a simple, terrifying fact. Our home was dying. The future wasn't just looking bleak. For all intents and purposes, it was already over. But here's the thing. This wasn't an extinction event for everybody. A choice was made. A line was drawn in the sand, separating who would face the end and who would get a chance to run from it. So, a tiny fraction of humanity managed to get out. They fled a collapsing world, desperate to find a new one. But what was waiting for them out there, in all that emptiness? Well, that would end up challenging everything they thought they knew about who they were. Okay, so how on earth did it get this bad? It all started with sheer, unfiltered desperation, with a world that had been pushed right to the very edge. Let's put a date on it, 2087. And you gotta understand, this isn't some abstract, far-off future. By this point, our planet's systems were in a total nosedive. It was no longer a question of if humanity was done for, but when. So, staring down the barrel of total collapse, what did the powers that be decide to do? They didn't plan to save the world, no. They planned to ditch it. They sold it as humanity's last great hope, but it was a hope that was really only meant for a chosen few. And this grand plan had a name, Project Exodus, a top-secret, absolutely massive project to build these enormous starships, cosmic lifeboats, and their one and only job was to carry who they decided were the best of our species to a new home. So, who exactly got a golden ticket for this interstellar cruise? Well, the passenger list was exclusive. We're talking about the essentials, scientists, engineers, and, you guessed it, the billionaires who bankrolled the whole shebang. As for the big question, what about everybody else? Well, the plan just didn't have an answer for them. And just like that, they launched, leaving a dying Earth in their rearview mirror. But their journey was just getting started. It was going to be a long, dangerous, multi-generational trip into the deep, dark unknown. And the scale of this trip, it's just staggering. This wasn't a quick hop. We are talking 65 years. They take off in 2087. Almost 30 years later, a huge systems failure merely ends the whole mission right there. It wasn't until 2152 that they finally arrived. Just think about that. Most of the original passengers never even lived to see their new home. But they made it. And what they found? Wow. It seemed to make every single sacrifice worth it. They found a paradise, a brand new Eden, and it felt like it was waiting just for them. They named it Nova Prime. And can you even imagine the relief? After generations stuck in a metal can, staring out at nothing, they find a world with clean air, fresh water, and life everywhere. It was a blank slate, humanity's ultimate do-over. This was their moment, a chance to start fresh, to build a civilization that wouldn't make the same mistakes that destroyed their first home. Yeah, or so they thought. Because that perfect, blank slate, turns out it wasn't blank at all. And right here, this is where the story completely flips on its head. The pioneers, the survivors, they were about to find out that they weren't pioneers at all. They were trespassers. The source puts it so simply, it's chilling. They were not alone. Their new Eden, this supposed paradise, well, it was already occupied by an intelligent species that was not happy to see them. You can see where this is headed, right? A conflict was inevitable. You have the newcomers from Earth, with all their technology, seeing a world that was theirs for the taking. And on the other side, the planet's natives, who saw a home that needed to be defended. For one side, it was a new beginning. For the other, it was an invasion. And so, of course, a war started. A bitter, brutal war for survival. But this time, humanity wasn't the dominant species like they were back on Earth. Now, they were the outsiders, fighting an enemy they didn't understand on a world that wasn't theirs. The fighting was horrific. But during this desperate war, a really chilling thought started to creep into the minds of the human survivors, an idea that would completely reframe their entire identity. They started to see themselves in a new light, not as brave pioneers, but as invaders. And that led them to this devastating conclusion, which comes right from the source. Humans have always been invaders. And then came the line that changes everything. They started to wonder, if we're the invaders on Nova Prime, is it possible this isn't the first time? What if our own planet Earth, what if it also once belonged to someone else? And that's when it finally clicked. They realized they weren't just fighting for a new home. They were just repeating an ancient cycle, a pattern of conquest so old they had completely forgotten it was their own origin story. And that leaves us with one last, really profound question. This story of Project Exodus, it isn't really about a possible future, is it? It's forcing us to look at our own history and ask a tough question. When we push forward to new frontiers, are we really building something new? Or are we just repeating a destructive past that we've simply chosen to forget?